Hey, housewives, come on in. You know the dirty dishes are still in the sink and the laundry is still in the basket. Pop your AirPods in and make yourself at home here. I'm Tori.
I'm Tracy.
And we are your Unlikely Housewives.
Stepping out in faith and believing that God calls the unlikely, we are here to show you the appreciation and validation you deserve, lead you to authentic relationships, and release you from believing the cultural lies to restore your faith and wellness.
Pull up those high-waisted yoga pants, tighten your top knot, and reheat your coffee for the third time today. Turn up the volume, and let's go.
Hey, housewives.
Hey, welcome back.
We're so excited for today's episode, y'all. Not only, y'all voted for these guests. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that y'all asked for it.
Yep.
And these guests are one of a kind. They are our husbands.
Very much.
Oh my gosh. So fun to record with them. But before we tell you any more about that, we're going to read this week's review.
Yes. And this one is from Jordan Clapp. She says, "Speaks to my soul. This podcast is the perfect balance of real life raw, which meets you where you are, and mixed with positivity to pick you up. Every episode gives me the boost I need to power through my week with balance and grace. Tori and Tracy are so relatable, easy to listen to, and their transparency is so refreshing. I love their tangible tips and calls to action that reassure me I don't have to be perfect to make an impact and find joy in each season of life." Thank you so much, Jordan, for that review. It's so encouraging to know that you are feeling validated and just ensuring that trust of, hey, you're not alone.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jordan. And don't forget that we need some more reviews to read. So be sure to leave a 5-star review and some comments.
It's not hard, friends. Just go to Apple, find our show.
Super fast.
Send us a review.
And if you screenshot it and tag at Unlikely Housewives of JoCo on Instagram or Facebook, we will share it as well. I'll even throw that for you guys. But what do you think, Tracy? We've already recorded with the guys, so we had a little, we can tell you about it. It was so fun.
It was so good. I just love how God uses those moments of like just the spontaneity. This is what you and I do, every week. We get behind these microphones and we share, and somehow something comes up that we know was totally from God because that wasn't on the plan. It wasn't on the notes. And we had a lot of those moments, and it was so good today.
It was. And we joked because I said that some of the stuff that they shared where I was like, I'm definitely going to re-listen to it. I think it'll be the one episode that I listen to because, as you guys know, I make Tracy listen to these.
Yep.
Because I don't like the sound of my voice.
Quality control. And listen to all of our episodes prior to release.
Yeah. But it was so good because there are so many similarities, but also so many differences.
Yeah.
And it was great to hear their perspective on things. From us putting them as our saviors and messiahs and what that feels like, to what did they think when we came to them with, hey, we want to start a podcast, and what their interpretation of how we met.
Always different the way a man tells a story and the way a woman tells a story.
Exactly. And then what was the move like? Because again, you and I did it differently. Mm-hmm. Y'all moved together at the same time. Andrew and I spent months apart. And and Andrew and I talk about what that looked like for our marriage. And there was just a lot of things.
In the pandemic, we talk about how hard it was, when they came home, and how the homeschooling of the kids and just in life. And we talk about the hardships of that season, but also the things that we gained from it.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that this is going to be one of y'all's favorite episodes.
You might have to listen to it in 2 parts. That's okay.
Yeah.
Please come back.
Yes.
Finish the whole thing.
You are going to laugh. Y'all are just going to love it. So it's
the real and raw of our marriages.
From the Stein and Shira family.
Yes.
That is so incredible. So you guys enjoy.
And without further ado, here's our husbands.
Well, we are here with our guest housewives. You guys asked for it, so we're going to go ahead and apologize now before we even get started for anything that may may come out in this podcast, but
It could be to our disadvantage. So I don't know. Let's wait and see until the end.
Right. This may never air. We don't know. So we'll see. But these are our better halves. I'll say that.
Yes. The men behind the scenes.
Exactly. So welcome, Chris and Andrew. Thanks for being with us today.
I say it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, so we kind of gave them an outline. We gave them a heads up of what we were going to do. So they had an idea, and then we'll throw the curveballs at them later. But what we just kind of wanted to start with was how we met the spouses. So Chris, how did you meet Tracy? Like, what was the beginning of y'all's relationship like?
Well, she was a stalker. She definitely stalked me.
I did.
It was, we were both in Chicago, worked for the wonderful Enterprise Rent-A-Car, great management program. I was working. She came in to actually do an interview with our area manager, and that was the first time we met. And she's told everyone, which I don't know that I believe her, but she tells everyone that she called her mom after she left that day and told her mom that she met the man she was going to marry. So
That is a true story.
from that day on,
Have we verified that with the mother?
she's an old woman
Years
though,
ago,
and like
she would have to
forgets
remember
things.
that. So,
Okay.
let us know if you remember that phone call. I
know.
was in a cab when I called her.
Because we know Tracy's mama listens to these when they
Sorry, I
when
called
they
you
launch.
old, Linda.
Bigger Christmas present coming,
Right,
Linda.
exactly. But yeah, so met officially then, and then at Enterprise we hang out as teams, and so we would go out a lot. And we're at a concert one night, and after the concert was over, I walked her home, and turned out that she lived directly across the street from me.
Oh, wow.
Which we had no idea, and
That was not part of my stalking.
became a very.
I was going to say,
relationship,
wow,
though.
you moved to live right across the street from
right.
him. That's a
No,
little
but
creepy.
It became a very convenient relationship. It was awesome.
So, but yeah, and so that's how we met.
Very cool. Okay. And then how long did y'all date before you guys got married?
1 year
Wow. That's
before we got married, or before we got engaged.
We were dating for a year, engaged for a year.
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 years we were, but that second year, when you're engaged, you're basically married anyway. You're just planning for that marriage.
That's true. Right. Yeah. Everything's just kind of like, all right, what are we doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything to add to that, Tracy? Did we miss out?
No, he did pretty good. I would say,
I've memorized that story.
I think the only tidbit is that so the sister locations that we had, like if ever I needed to go to that office, I was the first one in the office to raise the hand and be like, I'll go. And we had Saab convertibles, and I'll never forget, like pulling up in front, thinking I was so hot in this Saab convertible and being like, hey, Chris. And that is so not like me, but
If only they had foldies at that time.
oh,
That would have been amazing.
Shameless plug. Shame. And we'll put the link in the show notes.
All right, now it's your turn. Andrew, what is your story and how you and Tori met?
Well, it was a mail order service. No. Like every great Christian marriage starts off with, we met at a bar. Actually, right across the street from where I used to work. I was a sales manager at the time. I used to always take my team over after Friday or a Tuesday or whatever day there was. And Tori was a waitress there. And that was the last time she brought me a beer. But we're going to keep it clean.
Yes.
Right?
What
Clean
part
version.
of that story is not clean?
We're trying to change it
He
for the
has a different story
grandkids.
than you, clearly.
I
Yeah.
left her a note.
Oh.
There was a mix-up on who was paying for the final few beers between myself and another manager. And I left her a note and
Walked the tab.
walked the tab by accident. So I thought the other guy was paying. So the note included
Great,
my...
he's cheap.
Yeah.
Just wait.
The note included my phone number. And then it turns out, I guess, she was trying to figure out who was going to have to pay for the bill for the $20. And her manager said, it's on you.
15 years later, you're still paying the bill.
Yes, I am.
And
Inmate
that-
number 764. Yeah, so she had to pay the bill. So she ended up calling me the next day to say, hey, hope everything went okay. You owe me $20. Here's my number. So I said, well, that's great. I'll be more than happy to pay your $20 if you go out on a date with me.
Oh, bribery.
Yeah.
And she said, I can't do it. I'm writing a paper. And I said, well, I'll help you with that. So she goes, why would I ask you to help me with a paper?
Uh-huh.
I said, I can help you with all the editing of it. Because I said, well, what gives you that ability? I said, well, my mom was an English teacher. She goes, oh, okay.
Sold.
So, yeah.
Here you go.
So went on a date. I think she said 4 words.
Maybe. Well, do you want to tell him what the paper
you're a
was?
woman of many words. Why only 4 words?
Not when I was.
I missed those times.
Okay, but you also have to tell him what the paper was on.
I don't want to turn off some of your listeners, but it was on the death penalty.
Oh, okay.
And I said this was kind of the make or break moment for us living in Texas at the time was, are you for or against it?
Yep.
And she said for. I said, all right, we'll go on a date then.
So, but yeah, no, our first date, I didn't talk at all. And then even to get me to talk after dinner, he's like, well, let's go to Starbucks, trying to get me to talk even more.
I thought maybe she was tired, so I can give her some caffeine and that would get her going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's how it went.
What's your version? Similar?
Exactly.
Any details left out?
Yeah, it was. But I remember when I called him the same night because my manager made me pay for and $20 to a college student is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And so I called him, left him that message and said, hey, I hope you made it home okay. By the way, you owe me $20. And then he didn't call me for 2 days because that was a Friday night and he didn't call me until Sunday. So I'm thinking, oh my God, he's dead. My life is over because
I'm out $20.
No, because TABC, which is the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, rules that you can actually sue a waiter or waitress for over-serving you. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, his family's going to come after me. This is it. My life, I'm going to have, my parents don't have any money. I don't have any money. He's dead on the side of the road because I haven't heard from him.
Dark.
Yeah, exactly. And then he texted me on Sunday and goes, hey, I got my phone back. Thanks. And I was like, what the hell? And yeah. And then we started texting and then that's when I got the date.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah.
We obviously know that part. When did you get married? How long did you date?
We dated for
14 months. Then got engaged.
Yeah. Uh-huh. We were engaged for 9 months. I had to finish college. Yeah, you were.
You wanted to wait for her to turn 21 so she could drink at her own wedding.
That was also a determining factor. So, okay. Now, you guys met in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Wow, that came out with an accent, didn't it? Chicago. And when you guys decided to move here, Johnson County is where you're from, Chris. So how is it like to come back now with a wife and 4 kids?
Easy, because this is a great community for families. We were in Chicago for
almost 14 years.
14 years. And so, yeah, I mean, Chicago was fun. It was great time when we were young and in our 20s. Even with the first kid, it was a lot of fun. When it started adding more children, 4 is a lot to do Chicago. Public schools were a fear of mine as we were trying to decide if we were going to make a commitment to Chicago or not. And so I think we always knew that we were going to end up back at one of our hometowns. We're both family oriented people individually, and ending back up in her hometown was more difficult for my
I was going to say
stance.
her hometown is just a little bit smaller.
Right. So I think that had a lot to do with the decision. And getting back and just having help. And it has been an unbelievable blessing since doing that, because the amount of help we actually do need that we didn't realize we need has...
Yeah, it takes a village, and we've got some awesome people, family, everything here. Friends, all of the above.
Okay, so how did you feel, Tracy, when he said, okay, I've got this opportunity to move back to where I'm from? Like...
Initially, let's go back a few years, because obviously we skipped a few parts. We actually almost moved here after like kid 2 and 3, I think. And he had a job offer here, and he had a job offer in Chicago to like stay in his company and move up. And I remember being at a conference and getting a phone call from him that said, we're staying in Chicago. And at that point in time, I was ready to leave. But when we made that decision that we were staying, I think I was like, okay, I'm going to be a lifer. I'm going to be a city mom. This is just what we're doing. This is what our life is going to be like. I made my way, like double bob stroller, packing a kid. Like I figured it out. And I had the best community in our mom's group and our church. And we were really active in our church in Chicago, and we absolutely loved it. And so when the option to move here the second time came, I don't think I was as open as the first time. I was a little more apprehensive about it. And I think it was because I had rooted so well with the moms and the kids and the neighbors. I mean, we had 45 kids on our block. Anyone had my back. Like, all my kids outside, they'd get hurt. Someone would be taking care of them, And so I really struggled with that starting over. But God showed in every way possible that this was his plan, and just how we sold our house and the house we found and all the details of his job, like how everything worked out. We knew this was God orchestrated. So I couldn't say no to that. So it was definitely, being obedient and listening and letting the Holy Spirit lead him to lead our family here. And so obviously got on board, moved here, was super excited about it. And then got into a really dark place. I remember just being in the shower crying. And the only thing I could say was, Jesus, just meet me where I am. Like, I couldn't pray. Like, even though I knew that this was a good thing, like, I couldn't pray for what I wanted because I didn't know what I wanted. Like, it was easy for him. Like, he jumped right into the job. He jumped right into just life. And this was community. This was,
well, he knew. Home. I mean, this was home for him.
This was home.
So this was coming back. This was,
yeah,
and then
we've always discussed that, at least with Tracy. I don't know how it is with everybody else's marriage, but she needs the relationships more than I do. Mm-hmm. So I rely on her and our kids. Plus I have my family here. So it all felt comfortable to me. But I think she thought that I had all these friends back here when I came back, that this was where I went to high school. So this is, most of my buddies live in other states now. I have friends that are here, but they're not people that I've kept in contact with.
Well, and I think part of that is hard for a stay-at-home mom anyways, because you guys are going off on the daily, for 50, 60 hours a week. And you guys get to have the relationship when the most intelligent conversation we get to have is with our oldest. And that is typically asking, what do you want for breakfast? And then arguing for 10 minutes.
Yes. So, and to get your shoes on and get out the door.
Right.
And I think that was really the kicker. Like, I loved the move. I loved the house part. We had so much fun, figuring out all the details and
how long did it take? So from the time that he got the job offer, what was the time period?
He got the job offer in April and we moved in July. And so when we moved together, obviously we all, sold our house, did all that together in Chicago, moved here in July of 2016. And I would say my hardest part actually wasn't until October. It was just that getting the kids back into a routine, finding my own routine. I still obviously had one at home and another one that was half at home because he was in preschool at the time, and just kind of finding my way with that. There's so much unpacking, settling in when you're moved that like you're focused on the house. And once we were in, then it was the quiet.
Yeah, because I had a good 2 to 3 weeks of just time with her, moving, packing. I mean, we had movers pack our whole house. That was part of the relocation package. So, I mean, we were sitting around drinking wine, watching
just
movers pack up our stuff.
Like, it really was
so we made it a vacation.
It was a good transition. It wasn't until after the move that is when it became
settled.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys have a similar story of moving to Kansas, not from Chicago, but from Dallas. And you guys did it in phases. So, Andrew, tell us your version of this.
Yeah. So I guess I got the job in April of 17.
That's when I thought we started talking. You told me about it. Like, hey, I've got this interview.
I already accepted it. Just didn't tell you about it.
Great. Good to know. Wow.
From there, it was just convincing you.
Got it. Uh-huh.
So April of 17 is when I officially accepted the job and kind of commuted back and forth a little bit. Really started up here in July. Full time. So it was a little bit different because we had, I'm going to get the ages either 3 and 2 or 4 and 2 at the time for our daughters. So for about 4 or 5 months, just flying back and forth, I would fly up. I'd get picked up by my Uber a little before 4 a.m. on Monday. And then I would either fly home late Thursday night or typically Friday night. And did that for, like I said, about 4 or 5 months till we officially moved up here in November. Starting a new job. I was dedicated, spending, a good 50, 60 hours just trying to get to know all the people I worked with. And she ran the home, back in Texas. So the kids were in a little bit of preschool, having to figure out the relocation stuff herself. It was part of our package, but again, all the details with packing things up. I mean, this was the second time we moved, though, if you go back a few years. We moved right after we got married.
Yeah, that's right.
So right after we got married, we moved to Baltimore from Dallas. And so we were up there for about a year and a half. So that wasn't our first time to go through it, but it's certainly our first time to go through it with kids.
Yeah. It
was a pretty stressful time. And to be honest with you, our marriage was not at a very good place during that time.
Nope.
You'd have to agree so quickly. But it was not. And it was one of those things that we We learned the first time that we moved to Baltimore how much it brought us closer together. Because quite honestly, which is fantastic, she's a daddy's girl, and she's 22 years old and moving away from the only house that she's ever known. I was not very popular as a husband or as a son-in-law for taking their only child.
This one can relate to that.
Yeah.
He may not admit it, but it's true.
Oh, I'll admit it. I'm not blind.
Right? But even that one, back in the day turned out fantastic. We thought we'd be there a little bit longer. But again, we had a little bit of familiarity with doing it, but again, not necessarily with children. But there was also some pretty exciting parts. I don't know what it was. I mean, we came up here to visit the city. It was 38 and raining the entire time.
Every single time we visited, it was raining.
Like, hey, this is fantastic. Right? Yeah. Who doesn't want to come where it's 38 and raining all the time? But I mean, really, it truly was a God thing. Because if it was up to us, we would have stayed there. We would have probably stayed in Dallas because it was comfortable. We had family around. Her parents were close by. My parents were close by. But, it really was a God thing that, it basically said, hey, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to use this for things that you don't understand yet.
Yeah.
You're moving up there because you think this is a better opportunity and a better opportunity to make money and advance your career. But I'm going to use this move to get you two closer to each other and closer to me.
Yeah.
And that's truly what it's been about. So, I'm going to tell you just a quick story. We talked about, there's a dangerous time in every man's life Chris can relate to. It's when you're going through your life insurance policy, right? Because you want to give them just enough to take care of them, right? In case something happens, but not too much to encourage them to do something, right? So one of the things when we first moved up here, we were redoing my life insurance. And I said, well, I'm assuming that, if something happens to me, you're going to want to get back to Dallas, be close to your parents. And she said, no. Not at all. This is home. This is where I want to be, even if something happens. So at that moment, is when I said, all right, this is where we're supposed to be. So
I think my answer was like, I don't know. And then he was like, wait, huh? Are you sure? Because he legit. And I said, okay, well, maybe let's have enough money so I can move my parents up here. Right? like, let's get them up here. So, but yeah, no, that one even shocked me coming out of my mouth. So,
well, Tori, you need to shed some light too on how challenging it was being back at home, because I think when a lot of couples do move and that separation happens when, they're trying to get acclimated with their job and they've moved and you're at home and then they come home every weekend. Like, how was that for you in your perspective on the marriage?
And I'm going to interrupt just real quick. It actually worked out in our favor because we needed that time apart. We needed that time apart to be able to focus on ourselves and focus on really the absence makes the heart grow fonder type stuff.
Yeah.
That it, at least for me, I won't speak for you.
No, I'll say this because, and you said it already, that we were in a part of our marriage where we were really, really rocky. And it almost was like a divorce separation without it being a divorce separation. It gave us this is what it would look like, right? Sure. I'd have the kids during the week, getting them to and from school, doing all of those things. And then on the weekends, then it would be us or, his turn. Either he would fly home or we would meet him in a city. And that was kind of a fun thing too. We met in Oklahoma City a couple of times. We drove all the way up to Wichita a couple of times, but it gave us this, no, we really are better together. Mm-hmm. And the kids it was hard for them because they missed Daddy, but they were almost so young. It was just, Daddy's coming home today.
Yeah.
But the life of, props to single moms out there. Having all of that. Now, don't get me wrong. When he's away, bedtime is at 7:30. Okay. Mama runs a tight ship.
You don't mean that he comes in and lets him bounce on beds and then it's tickle time and then it's wrestle time. And then all of a sudden you're an hour later and you're like, what happened?
Right.
Oh, fun dad jumped in at bedtime.
Right. You mean the one where they're like, I don't know why they're so riled up. What happened? I'm like, they were seriously tired an hour and a half ago.
You've been doing this whole week. Why are they like this?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it, like you said, it gave us that time apart to see what life would be like without each other. And God just used it to really heal and bring us closer together. Because from the beginning, I always, and I've mentioned it before, I've always, when he got the offer or got the interview, God from the beginning told me, Tori, get ready for Kansas City. Even when it was rocky, everybody was like, are you sure you're going to go? Yeah. God told me, get ready for Kansas City. And so there was no doubt in my mind that Kansas City was where we needed to be. So.
And this isn't even something that we had talked about or was on the agenda, but I think we should talk about it. I think one of the things that in our marriages, we absolutely need to individually, but then together communicate what the Holy Spirit is telling each one of us. And in those conversations, because like we said before, when I had that hard time and I was at a conference, I was at a specific conference, and the next class that I went to was letting the Holy Spirit lead your husband. And I think that is something that we as women, maybe
we want to be their Holy Spirit. Let's be clear. Nudge, nudge.
He only talks to you two.
Yeah. We do forget that a little bit. And so in these seasons, I think that is just something to bring to attention, that we have to listen to those callings that they have, because we're absolutely both communicating with the same God.
Well, and I think something that, and I know you and I have talked about it, Andrew, about women in Bible studies. We as women sometimes will think that we're spiritually stronger because we get to go and do the weekly Bible study with our friends. We get to have the quiet time after the kids go to school, things like that. Mm-hmm. But our relationship is not their relationship.
Yeah.
Like God gives us those quiet moments and that ability, because for women, relationships are important. So we get to do the Bible studies.
And maybe we need more time with Jesus.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because he's like, hey, ladies, I'm going to give you this extra time.
You guys need
so that you can learn more and get closer to me.
But
well, I do a lot of praying during sports games.
Specifically Florida State?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. In this past couple of years, there's a lot of prayer in that one.
Yeah, yeah. But we forget that they have a different, like God has a different plan and a different relationship with the men, because they are supposed to be the spiritual leaders of our house and of our families. And so I don't think women in general give them enough credit when we were like, well, I'm in the Bible more than you are.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't.
We've had those conversations.
Yes,
we definitely need to. That's why we're good for each other. We remind each other that we're not each other's Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
We haven't won yet. We're not perfect yet.
Yeah. None of us are. We're all sinners.
Yep. Right. Till he calls us home.
Yep. All right. We got to jump ahead to pandemic changes. So for a lot of people, obviously, the pandemic changed a whole lot of things. About 2 years ago, when the world shut down, we're actually approaching the anniversary. Holy moly.
No, I think this is
Today is, right?
Today is the anniversary.
Yes, we're recording on the day that it all.
Okay, so it's officially
National Women's Day, too. International Women's Day. Is there a coincidence?
That's not funny.
That is a topic to be discussed. That is another podcast episode. We'll discuss that.
Okay. Pandemic changes, work, family, everything changes in this moment. Men come home. Women obviously come home too. But in our circle here, you guys both came home and were told you're working from home indefinitely. We were told your children are home indefinitely. And we finished schooling, obviously through March through May. We have our own perspectives, and we've shared some of that on our previous podcast, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But since this is for you, Andrew, tell us what that was like for you guys.
Well, first off, it wasn't indefinite. It was 2 weeks. Right?
Right.
So, that's right.
2 weeks to flatten the curve. And all that stuff.
Sorry,
right?
that's Tori's long, exasperated sigh.
I remember not even being prepared, right? Because you just come home. It was like you're going on vacation for a couple weeks. Bring your laptop home and figure out how to communicate every once in a while, send emails. And then turned out to be a lot longer than 2 weeks. I guess back to the specific question, what was it like for us?
Yeah. Obviously, your marriage. This is the focus. The messes and the blesses.
Yeah, it was. Ooh.
Because if you remember, our kids were on spring break when
we just got back. Yeah.
We had just gotten back, and they had told us like 2 weeks. And then you went to work a couple of days before they said, now you're home for 2 weeks. Because you basically told me to suck it up, Buttercup, when I cried that our children were home. There was not a whole lot of compassion.
And I think that's a direct quote.
Passion there. I don't know.
He wasn't emotionally available for you during your
he was
pandemic.
like, what's the big deal? And then all of a sudden he came home.
and then he saw the big deal.
Then we all figured out what the big deal was.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The hardest part was trying to figure out where to work from. Did you go through that, Chris? With the dining room table was my desk, and then the kitchen table was my desk.
Yeah, I had a couch. I had a couch with a laptop, and then it all changed when the laptop broke.
Move down to the basement, move up to a different room. Just trying to get some peace and quiet, right?
We had to put Daddy out of sight because otherwise the children at the window going, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. Because that was the cool thing. But when did it change for you? Because there was a point like where it was like, I need quiet in the whole house, so I'm on this conference call. And then
for some reason, I was afraid that somebody would think I was home. Right. But I'm supposed to be home. Right. So I just had to, I just kind of had to let it go a little bit and say, listen, I know everybody else is going through the same thing. Kids in the background, dogs barking, all that stuff. It's just so unique that time. So it probably took a good month to 2 months, if not longer, before I finally just said, hey, whatever distractions are in the background, they're just going to be there. Right. Yeah. That's just a part of the life we're living right now. But it was also great. We thought it was going to be kind of scary in the beginning to be so close to each other for so long.
I told the neighbors not to worry about the 6-foot hole I was digging in the backyard. I was just gardening.
Yeah. And for everybody who knows Tori's gardening skills.
I kill the plants too.
Yeah, they killed a cactus once. Once you got into the routine, though, with the kids, and that was probably the frustrating part, really, was both of us trying to help. And our kids were young. But just trying to get them to focus on doing their schoolwork, that was a big distraction because they were not in the mood. Right.
Well, we had a kindergartner.
When they're home, they're home. They're not here I get my iPad, right? Or I get to go watch a show. And there was a lot of lost tempers between the both of us and trying to get our kids to fall in line.
Well, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, we were told to not just work from home, but stay home and don't go anywhere, Yeah. And that then just put a whole nother level of pressure on us of like, how do we get the energy out of these kids? How do we get them entertained so that they're not on their iPads or just watching shows, overstimulated, cranky, it threw everything off. So we can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. For you, Chris, what was it like? Because both of you guys working 50 hours a week away from the house, and then all of a sudden, because at some point, too, it switched. It was like, no, you're just going to stay home. Like, now you need to produce what you need to produce, actually do it's not just, this isn't vacation time anymore. This is get your crap done and still be at home with the family and all the things.
I would say for me, for what I do, there wasn't a lot to do during that period of time. I'm in banking and that just stopped, right? We weren't lending money anymore because we were scared about our business is going to be in business anymore. All the prospects and the clients that I speak to, they were no longer in the offices anymore. And so a lot of my efforts were actually done to just maintain a lot of relationships. So a lot of phone calls, a lot of just catching up, but that's limited. So I would say no question, the hardest spot and the piece that just freaked me out was the homeschooling piece. The inability of us to do what teachers do is a challenge. I think teachers do an amazing job with our kids and do great things and getting them ready for the next steps. The pressure on a parent to do that with no training. Luckily, Tracy had a little bit of the teacher certification training and knowing what to do on the early childhood. We left Parker kind of to his own. Garrett and Ryan.
It was the end of his first year of middle school.
Right.
So thank goodness he had already been there long enough. So he got the hang of it. But what we didn't know was the systems. Like they use Canvas, they use electronic things. And so it was us as parents having to now learn, how are your assignments coming in? What is this assignment? How are you submitting them? He had regular Zooms. The boy had his timers and reminders on his phone for every Zoom that he had to be on. I counted one time, I think I had 14 Zoom reminders on my phone for my 4 kids in one day. And they were all going off, of course, at odd times, like 9:34. Like, really? Like, come on, but those were the things that we were dealing with, was managing all the kids, the Zoom, so they could check in with their parents. And hey, let's be quiet. Daddy's on a call.
Right. So I would say the other thing, and probably the biggest challenge and one of the most challenging things that we've ever had as parents, was dealing with our youngest daughter going through anxiety issues.
Yeah.
Like that was exactly when it all hit. And so this is never going to end. Having that stress, am I going to be employed? A lot of my friends are being laid off.
Exactly.
They're not needed anymore. I would say more than anything, it wasn't the being home and taking that as an opportunity to be a relaxing time. I think it was, am I going to be employed? How do I keep my job? How do I become important to my firm when there isn't what my normal job is anymore, and proving that I'm important to the firm? There was a lot of that, I think, but I don't know. As the Steins always do, we take advantage of opportunities and try to make it the best we can. I have very fond memories of during the summer hanging out outside, having horse competitions with the kids in basketball.
We had a kickball tournament.
Out in that empty lot. Yep. I remember that now. Just trying to I will argue that it will probably be one of the greatest memories that our kids will have, to know, hey, the parents were around. We didn't play on our iPads and video games the whole time we were there, and we made efforts to really try to engage with our kids.
Well, I have to bring up too, like I want to say the first 10 days when it was official lockdown, the Steins came out in full force and they made a little tour.
The bus,
the basically, the minivan. And y'all came out, and because that really was a time where we didn't know what we didn't know, right? I mean, we were all still wiping down our groceries and we're leaving them into the garage.
It wasn't 6 feet either. I think as we greeted everyone, it was like 40 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for the families that were like, "Can we hug you?"
Well, that
was like, "Yes, you can hug me." Yeah, I'm going to accept all the hugs.
Yeah. Well, so, Housewives, what they would do is that they showed up and they called, but they had music blaring from the minivan, and they all had signs that saying, "We love you," and, like
God's got the whole world in his hands,
and all the things.
All the kids had made all the signs beforehand.
And so they were just dancing on the street, like parked on the street, and we were on our front porch. Like, that's how far away we were from y'all. But I still remember that, and that time hop comes up every once in a while. So it'll come up here in a couple of weeks, actually.
And I would say that is probably like one of my most favorite things that we did, because it gave the kids the chance to see, like, you take a hard time and you make it positive. And we had them all tell us their favorite, their closest friends at the time. I think we visited like 10 or 12 houses. And originally the first plan was to just go see grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
We were going to go do that for them. And then we were like, okay, now we're going here. Now we're going here. And, I think we did it over a couple of days. And of course there was still.
Well, you knew everybody was home. Right. I mean, it wasn't like you were dealing with anybody's schedule too.
And that took 4 hours out of a day trying to figure out what to do with the kids. So that was
true. That's true. That's true.
Well, and I think, was that part of our actual spring break? I think that's actually what had happened. Or it was after, because a lot of people's spring breaks were canceled.
Right.
Included. And so it was, I think, the tail end weekend, maybe before the kids had to go back to online or virtual school or whatever. So,
yeah.
But we made the most of it. I think the hardest part for me was I worried about dad on a call and like hush the kids and, just all the schedules, because we set up homeschool in the kitchen so I could manage the 3 together. And then my son was up in his room and Chris was in the dining room. That was his office. So we were all in the same place. And, there was a lot of just that stress and tension. Like I could just feel it. And it's hard. I think that was probably, like he's talking about the blessings. We absolutely got a lot out of it. But the hardships was that he and I never got to separate and come down. You know, like, let's be honest. I drank more wine in 2020 in the beginning of 2021 than I needed to.
Oh, you're not the only one. I mean,
thankfully I learned to
that's why we're out
habit
right now. Okay. That's why they can't find any bottles.
I stopped that habit. I still enjoy a glass of wine every now and then, but it's not every day like it used to be. But that became the problem. We couldn't like separate and unwind and find that like spark and fun and date nights. I mean, we had to be creative and we tried. But it was hard. I feel like we're just now trying to get out more and be more intentional with dating. But yeah, it was definitely hard.
Yeah. Okay, you guys, we had to stop it abruptly because we had to break this episode into 2.
It's so good. 2 parts. It's worth it.
I promise you guys. So next week, you are going to hear about our non-traditional jobs and what our husbands think about it and what their initial thoughts were when we said, "Hey, babe, I want to start a podcast."
Yeah, you're also going to hear what my husband really thought about you and I being in a sauna together.
I was going to say too, and we're going to talk about which couple do you think is a better marriage team or a better parenting team? So
you get to think about that for a week.
Yeah.
After this first part of the episode, what do you think? Out of these couples, which is a better marriage team, which is a better parenting team?
So we cannot wait to share the rest of this with you guys next week. So mark your calendars because next Tuesday, you are not going to want to miss it.
Part 2 coming right up.
Whether we made you laugh or cry today, we pray you feel appreciated, bolder and braver than yesterday, stronger and more faithful for tomorrow, but living in who you were made to be today. Join our online community on Facebook. Find our link in the show notes. Be sure to review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you enjoy listening. Until next time, Housewives, we give you permission to walk confidently, freely, and be intentional in your slippers or stilettos.
episode, The Messes and Blesses of Marriage.
21.
Oh, wow. Okay.
14 to catch up on.
Oh, jeez.
That'll be a blooper.
Nope.
That's a blooper. That's a blooper, Craig. Mark that.